I'm Chad Stevens from the Institute of International Studies, and this is Michaela Wallin from the Swedish retailer H&M. She's originally from Sweden, so you'll love hearing her Swedish accent. She's been in the United States nearly 4 years. At the 9 o'clock hour, she gave a presentation on H&M, their rapid program of expansion and their efforts in sustainability and recycling, which was fascinating. I had no idea they were so environmentally conscious. It makes me want to go now to H&M and buy something, even though they don't really have my style. Joplin has an H&M store, just opened exactly 1 year ago. And many people were surprised that Joplin, this market, would get an H&M. So I do a lot of traveling in big cities, and there's always an H&M, and the fact that they would come to Joplin, I'm still amazed. So that presentation was on the company itself. This one is going to be more on Swedish culture. So I think we're very fortunate to have Michaela Wallin come all the way from New York. She didn't arrive until about 10 o'clock last night. She's going to be on the 2 o'clock flight out of Joplin. So please join me in welcoming Michaela Wallin.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you. Hi, everyone. And yes, as Chad so nicely introduced me to come here, already back in February, I think it was, early on in the year. I've got an email from one of my old colleagues back in Stockholm, and she said, would you be interested in talking at a university about, mainly it was H&M back then, because I normally do lectures on sustainable buying. And I said, absolutely, great. I didn't really check where Missouri was. That was one part of it. And then Chad came back to me and he said, can't you talk about something Swedish? Because we're having a Nordic semester. Oof, that's a bit uncomfortable. Okay, Swedish. So I really had to go back quite a lot to be, okay, what should I talk about? That is Swedish, that could be of interest for others. That is not IKEA and how to put the furniture together. I was planning on actually having that kind of setting. I thought that would be quite fun. But no, even though I think every Swede kind of have that ingrained in how to put IKEA furniture back together. I know students, you generally have that as well. How many have any kind of Scandinavian heritage here? A few? 4? Yeah? Swedish?
Jag är från Sverige.
Du är från Sverige? Great. We could take it in Swedish then. Well, okay, great then. Then maybe there will be some recognition in this presentation. I won't be showing a lot of slides. It will be more integrated or talking about Lagom, and of course it's extremely subjective. I haven't done a huge statistical study on it, but I did read up on what a couple of people have on this subject that I've chosen today, which is introducing the word Lagom. Have you heard of it before? No. Have you had anything, Chad, on Lagom? No. Great. I am going to try to be true to the word, and our Swedish friend up here can help me if he thinks I'm incorrect about my view on Lagom. My idea is be happy, be Lagom, and it's both an exclamation mark but also a question mark behind it. The word Lagom, and I'll put it up for you. I'm gonna, no, sorry. Is it all freeze? No, it's not. I'm gonna give you, there we are. Sorry. This is Lagom. As you can see, it's pronounced Lagom. And there is really no good translation on Lagom. There's really no English word that takes all of what Lagom is to consideration. But in easy words, yes, you can say it means not too little, not too much. It is just right. Being Lagom is not only a word in Sweden, it's a way of being. It's integrated in who you are as a person. Lagom is finding that balance of, in many ways, but generally speaking, it actually has to do with food. And that's also where it comes from, the word Lagom. Actually, if you take how it's built, the word itself, if you take lag, this word, it means two things in Swedish. It means law, the law, and it means team. In this context, it's generally considerate of the team, and om is around. So sorry, let's see here. Lagom, the first time we see the word lagom is actually dating back to the 15th century in Sweden. It's always been around since poverty, and it's very much about sharing your food with others. So basically, the food that you had was going to be sufficient enough for the entire team. You shouldn't take more than what you needed until the team was fulfilled. So lagom is, a lot of people claim that lagom could be an individual thing, you know, and a lot of people mean that lagom means that you can't be the best, or that you can't stick out. You want to be somewhere in between consistently. This is not my view of lagom at all, but you will hear that way of lagom. My view of lagom is a little bit like, you know, that parent that you have in back of your mind, where, you know, you want to stay up much longer to watch that TV, but you know you won't be able to get up in the morning. That everything you do has a consequence, you know? And lagom kind of helps you to even the curve out a little bit. And I try to kind of illustrate it with, stay with me here. Let's say that this is life, you know, and we tend to seek, you know, the extremes in life. It's not good until it's perfect. It's either great or it's really bad. There's a lot of words for it. It's about the journey. It's you know, find your happy place in the moment you are right now. Lagom kind of helps you with that. It's the parent that tells you, no, you don't need another piece of chocolate. You know, and you can even have that internal fight with yourself, where your stomach is content, but your brain is not. So your brain can be in these kind of, this is perfect. I need to finish this bag of chips. Whereas lagom would say, actually, you've probably had enough now, you know? And at the moment, you might be dissatisfied because you really want to finish that bag of chips. But after a little while, you will probably appreciate the fact that you finished when you did. A little bit with, you know, going out drinking with your friends. You don't really want to be the guy who stayed the latest in the bar and, you know, made that fool out of yourself. You'd rather wake up the next morning and be happy you weren't that guy. But standing there in the bar, you happily take that next beer. So basically, lagom is a little bit it spreads out the frequencies that you live on. And it gives you a little bit longer stage of being, should I say, happy or content. Because if we're constantly striving for perfection and being number one, we're not happy at 95, we're not happy at 90, we're not happy at 80. There's a very long stretch where we find this is not good enough. Lagom is a little bit the reverse. Maybe we've entered the stage of this is good enough. We have a wording where we say 80-20. Have you heard of it? Yeah. That's a little bit lagom, you know. You put 20% of the effort into producing 80%, but then it takes 80% to do the other 20. And that might be worth doing just for that moment, but across the entire lifespan, is it? It's coming back to, do you need to win every single battle? And I utilize Lagom quite a lot in my life, and a lot of my friends would not see me as a Lagom person. Sweden is often called the country of Lagom, which basically means that everyone dresses accordingly. No one will be that person that sticks out in bright red. You want to fit in. You want to make sure that you do what society is expected of you. I believe you can still be Lagom and wear that red dress. That doesn't mean that you don't look at the needs of the team. But what you don't do in that red dress is take all the time from the team. You consider the rest of the party. You might enjoy your red dress and you feel like you look great, but you are considerate of the fact that, oh, maybe I'm going to a wedding. Maybe I shouldn't be wearing the red dress because this is the day of the bride. So it's more about being mindful about people in your surroundings, their needs and their emotions, rather than, oh, I don't care if it's a wedding, I'm going to turn up in my wedding dress today, you know? And that's not Lagom. That first week would be very... And it is funny, because I'm having this conversation quite a lot. My partner is British. And he's had a lot of steep learning curves with coming to Sweden. And especially the way Lagom applies to everything. We have 2 cabins in the north of Sweden, and where we go skiing. And out of a Swedish proportion, they're state-of-the-art cabins. I mean, they were built in the 70s, but they have electricity and they have running water, and most importantly, there's a sauna. We look over to the Norwegian border, where the Norwegians, first of all, they don't drive to their hytte, as they refer to it. They ski to it. And there is no running water, there is no electricity, and yeah, that makes the Norwegians a little bit more hardcore. But we prefer a little bit more Lagom. It doesn't need to be that extreme. You can have both. But when he came to our cabins, he entered and he immediately saw bunk beds and a cabin from the 70s. And he thought, this is terrible. I mean, I thought Sweden was a rich country. And I said, well, what do you mean? I mean, this is fantastic. You know, we have tracks just out here. Everything is available. There's a shop that we can walk to and get our groceries and so forth. I mean, he grew up in central London. For him, he did not see how Lagom would fit into his life whatsoever. He has a huge interest in bikes, for example. I love biking as well. I do a lot of triathlons, and which is not seen upon as Lagom, that is seen upon as quite extreme. But I think I can still be Lagom within the sports that I'm doing. So the difference between us is that he goes into the red zone, and he loves that pain cave, as he refers to it. And when he joins into a competition in the morning, he walks up and he says, "Don't talk to me." And then he walks away and he goes into his focus zone just to get prepared for the race. Myself, when I get ready for one of these triathlons, I see it as my responsibility to support the people who are doing the race for the first time. Because I know how it feels to stand in the start line of an Ironman and thinking, I am going to die. You know? And I see it as my responsibility to, like, you'll be fine. We will make it through this, I promise. And generally, the first thing I tell people is, be mindful of how lucky we are. The fact that we have bodies that allow us to stand here today to take on a challenge like this, that makes us extremely lucky. We have a mindset that allows us to think, I might be able to do a 14-hour day swimming and biking and running, and I'll be able to overcome that, and I will finish. That you should be grateful of. So while I'm standing there, joining with people, peeing in their wetsuits and being very nervous, my dear partner is sitting under the tree, focusing. He's going to kill the competition. And we always have conversations about this, but for me, I enjoy my race Lagom. You know, I race with a smile, and I race with my fellow competitors, and he's in it to win it. And we always go back and forth whether or not, you know, is he then more successful in life than I am? And it obviously it's hard to measure, because my success is when I see this person that I patted on the back come running past me, because I'm a terrible runner, and you know, you can see the smile on her or his face, and like, I am doing this. That for me is, you know, that's the number one place to be. That's a fantastic feeling. Pierce, he gets that feeling when he's like number one on the podium, and he's been giving it all out there. Right or wrong? And I'm not saying all Swedes are like this, but this is how I apply Lagom in my life, because I'm not a professional triathlete. I do it as a hobby. So does my partner. He doesn't realize it yet, but one day maybe. I find that if I utilize that more it's more about the team and make sure that people around me are feeling great. I feel great. And I do believe that this comes very much from the mindset of Lagom. And then we can talk about, you know, is it originated from food, or does it mean that no one can stick out? Or, and for some people it means just that, you know, this is just how much I want in my cup of coffee. Like, this is the perfect proportion of milk. And if you ask a Swede whether or not is the word Lagom important, I would say 80% of Swedes would say no. I don't have to have Lagom. I could utilize the words perfect. Are you happy with the amount of milk? Yes, it's perfect. But instead we utilize the word, this is just Lagom. And it kind of means the same, but Lagom takes the group into consideration, whereas perfect is a much more individual aspect on maybe not just that particular cup of coffee, because that is quite individual. You rarely spread that among. But you see what I mean, how that changes the mindset. Lagom would also be very much considerate of how how much milk is left for the others to put in their coffee, as an example. So you will notice, and it's quite funny, if you're having, have you heard about fika? Have you had fika yet? Some of you? Not the Italian version of it. I've heard it means something totally different. Let's not go there. But fika for Swedes is life. What do you say back there, Swede?
Yes, it's the most important part of the day.
It is. Nothing is as important as fika. I will give you a little idea of how it looks like. This is a Swedish fika. It's both a noun and a verb. The noun is generally a cup of coffee. Swedes drink the most coffee in the world after the Finns. We drink on average 5.4 cups of coffee per day. And we're talking cups, not like the little espresso version, cups. What this comes from, I have no idea, but it is filter coffee, very important. I think we have 8 huge coffee roasteries in Sweden, Gevalia being one of them, who made it here to the US as well. Coffee is very, very important. Most of my friends, especially their parents, they have timers on their coffee makers, and the aim is to make sure that they start a new pot before the timer ends. Whenever or if ever you get introduced to a Swede or a Swedish home, fika will be offered. So, coming back to the noun, cup of coffee and a sweet treat. And in general, it's a cinnamon bun. That's what we love. The verb is much, much more important. So if you throw out to a friend, if you want to meet over a fika, that means that you are going to meet without alcohol being introduced. And you're going to meet to talk about something else that's generally not work, life. And fika is actually something that we do in companies as well. Generally, the first fika is at 10:20 in the morning. And then people get up, they go and get their coffee. They might have a banana or a sweet treat or something. And you chat with your colleagues. There was something that I learned when I moved to London the first time around. I walked in and, super engaged about getting to know my new colleagues. And I said, morning, and asked, obviously, how are you? And the direct response was, not too bad. Oh, okay. Does that mean it's generally bad and today is not so bad? Or does that mean that... For a Swede, that's very hard, because when you ask someone, how are you, you are genuinely interested in how they are. If you're not, you just say hello. Okay? And this is also something in the US is even harder, because you walk up to your colleagues and everyone goes, hey, how are you? And they answer, hey, how are you? But I just asked you how you, oh, okay. And you reply with a question, which is super, super confusing. And I tried to figure out, because in the beginning I started to realize I was the odd one out, because I was thinking, why don't people want to know how I am when they ask, how are you? Because in Sweden, if you would ask someone, hey, how are you? You would stop. And you would talk about, how was the weekend? Actually my mom is not doing so well. A little bit of a life story, So if you want to avoid that, you don't ask people how they are. You say hello or good morning, and that's it. But here, everyone asks constantly how you are, and even strangers ask how you are, but no one is interested in the response. Most people just want to hear, good. Yeah, and it took me about 3 years to get there, and I'm about being there now. But it's really hard to wrap your head around. We're very straight to the point. You'll notice that in my email conversation as well. It's not, especially in England, this was very hard. You need to write an essay in Sweden or in England if you want to get something across. It's very much, oh, dear sir, and hello, madam, and wishful thinking that would have been possible if we could potentially look into this someday, maybe. Whereas the Swede would be, send me the email, done. And if you've sent a couple of emails, you won't even sign your name. It's just send me the email. And it's seen upon as quite rude in a lot of other markets. It's like, oh my God, they must be really upset. They're not. It's just that the Swedish vocabulary is quite short. We don't color a lot of things. It's very to the point, and we just ask for what we need. And no bad intention in any way, but if you encounter that, you will know why. I've also taken a little bit of a learning to that. Took a while. People told me that they were afraid of me in the beginning when I came to London, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. But I've just translated my Swedishness straight into English, and I was straight to the point consistently, and I probably sounded like some kind of dictator to all of my colleagues. That was not the intention. But back to the fika. So my first rotation was actually to Dublin, Ireland, and they are great at socializing. Anyone Irish here?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, you know how to socialize. Generally with beer, though. Whereas the Swede would socialize around coffee and a sweet treat. We've had too bad of a history when it comes to alcohol in Sweden, so I think that's why fika had to be invented. And they monopolized the alcohol, so yeah, stay out of that. Basically, I tried to introduce the concept of fika to my new Irish friends. And I was super excited. I said, guys, we're going to go out, we're going to get your best coffees and your best sweet treats, and we are going to have a fika. Okay? Everyone was excited. We went to the local coffee shop, we got our coffee, sweet treats, and then we went to back into the office. And I placed down the coffee, the sweet treats. All of my colleagues came up, they grabbed it, and then they went back to their seats in front of their computers. And I was like, no. This is not a fika. You can't have a fika on your own. That's impossible. A fika involves at least 2 people. Otherwise it's not a fika, then you're just having a coffee. So I had to gather the groups, take them into one of our conference rooms. Sadly, we didn't have any else available. And I said, fika is about, getting to know each other. What did you do this weekend? And people were looking at me as I was like the craziest person on the planet. They were like, we just work together. We do not talk to one another. And I was amazed because they were working in Dublin generally, they have remodeled old apartments into offices. So one works in the bedroom, one works in the living room, all the bathrooms has a bathtub in them. It's very, very weird. So you feel like you're in a home. So, I mean, potentially they could have created like a really nice feeling here. But they have been sat next to one another for a good 5 years and never socialized outside work. And this I thought was fantastic. So obviously I got super engaged and, we need to do these fikas. But there was definitely a bit of a barrier to get it started because everyone just wanted to get back into work. They couldn't understand, why are we wasting our time? And that's very hard for a lot of people to understand. But in Sweden, like fika, and especially Friday fika, that's like the Super Bowl of fikas. That's when someone bakes. Usually it rotates. So if you're 20 people in your team, One person is responsible for doing the baking, and you're not allowed to buy. You bake. So the good thing is that the first conversation goes around the recipe, how they made the cookies, and is it gluten-free? Obviously, that's come to Sweden as well, lactose intolerance, and everyone is needing gluten-free buns. But it's so then obviously everyone tried to top each other off every Friday of making the best Friday fika for the team. But there is something important in integrating with one another, not talking about work. What I see that I miss in these workplaces that do not do fika is a lot of miscommunication, a lot of assumption of who people are and how they react to what you do. So fika is like a crash course in communication skills. But you also feed people so they're mentally happy. They get their caffeine, they have their sugar levels up, they're in a good state, they're happy, now they're ready to communicate. The worst thing you can do is take a group of 20 people, 11 o'clock before lunch, and try to get them to communicate. By the way, there's nothing available. There's no water, there's no coffee, everyone's energy level is somewhere down here. Everyone is just wondering about their lunch. I don't do meetings 11 to 12. That's absolutely useless time. That time is spent much better for people to focusing on their own tasks. Then they have lunch, and then we can talk in the food coma instead. We generally, even though it's a slow conversation, we generally have happier conversations in that time. So fika is we can laugh about it, and we can talk about how the hell can you eat that much sweet treats and coffees and still stay without diabetics. There is diabetics in Sweden as well, of course. But Lagom comes back and haunts you here. Okay? So if you had one cinnamon bun in the morning, you don't take another one in the afternoon. You make sure that you stay within that happy medium, so to speak. Then maybe you take a fruit in the afternoon. So Lagom is that parent that comes back and reminds you every now and then to stay in line. But I think it's yes, it can be a love-hate relationship, but I kind of like having Lagom reminding me every now and then. Currently I live in New York. I assume you've been to New York, the crazy city, where offense is the best defense, to utilize another football analogy. It's a very hard city to integrate to. I've never heard that many curse words ever in my entire life going down a cycle path. And once again, my partner, he loves engaging in it. It's F you, F you, F you, F, and he goes back and forth. Sorry, not part of my French here. And I'm thinking, what are people gaining from this? That's not Lagom at all. No. Lagom is to slowly slow down behind the person in front of you. You wait. You check. Is it okay to pass? And then you might frighten the person in front of you when you pass, because the Swede would never say anything. That's also something. I'm not sure if it's caused by Lagom or if it's something that we've created on the side of Lagom, but we do not like conflicts. Maybe it's why we've had to introduce fika, because it's much nicer to talk about weather and people and warm things rather than having a conflict at work. So I think they come very much hand in hand. Don't ever try to start an argument with a Swede. They will immediately back off. And my dear partner has also realized this quite quickly. If he tries to have an argument with me, it generally comes with 2 days of silence. And he doesn't know what has gone wrong, or what he had said, and he will never figure out what he's done or what he's done wrong. But I will come back again after about 48 hours and I will be myself. So that's the tricky part with Swedes. You know, it's hard to, they generally don't get very, we don't, as I said, since we live there in that middle spectrum, we rarely get very angry or super happy. We don't have like those super extremes. We live somewhere in between. So if you push someone a little bit in either part, it becomes very uncomfortable. And that takes some time to come back on track. In my case, 48 hours. Some people might have a shorter span on that. I always have to be very upfront with people that I work with, that if I get pushed into that spectrum, I might take my time to come back. But generally what my mindset is okay, I'm going to take this with me, I'm going to process this, and I'm going to think, will it make a difference in 100 years? And if I still think it will make a difference in 100 years, after 48 hours, I will come back to you and talk about it. Obviously, generally, that person has already left that conversation 48 hours ago and are not wondering, why are we talking about this? So that's something to be mindful around Swedes as well. We're not very direct moment kind of feedback giving people. But that's why I think we need to maintain the fika culture, for sure. That's mostly what I have about Lagom and fika. I think the most important thing for me, for you to carry with you when it comes to Lagom and fika, of course, try a fika. Definitely have a fika with maybe a newfound friend, or could be a family member. Take a moment to sit down, have a cup of coffee or tea with a sweet treat, and talk about things that is not work or school. It's quite interesting, actually, what comes out of those conversations. And the second thing I would say is be mindful of Lagom. It doesn't say that you can't be perfect. It doesn't say that you can't strive to be number one. But be mindful of the people around you whilst getting there. I always think crossing that finish line wouldn't be as fun if there was no one there to cheer you on. Someone needs to be applauding you or being your audience as well. Not everyone can be number one at every stage in life. Sometimes we just have to be Lagom, and I think that would generally make us a little bit more happy. And I think especially being in a student environment, which can be extremely competitive at times, a bit of Lagom in the group works. And I think we do a lot of fika as students, we just don't know the importance of it. But yeah, be mindful, be Lagom, and utilize it in the best terms, for sure. Any questions about Lagom or fikas or the Swedish culture overall? It's fairly straightforward, isn't it? Thank you so much, everyone. Sorry, Chad, you had a point here.
Yeah, most of this audience didn't hear your presentation about H&M. Could you maybe talk about how Lagom and fika is used in your workplace?
Absolutely. How many was here this morning? A few of you. Okay, so I won't touch base too much. But one big thing for H&M is our values, where we base our company on. And a big portion of that is be one team and keep it simple. And sometimes we try to, and in the workplace, for example, fika in Stockholm is every every day. But we also introduce fika in all of our offices around the world. So generally we have 3 fikas a week, and it's a great opportunity for all of the staff to meet cross-functional and get to know one another. Generally on the fikas we can have different themes. So we also bring in the diversity of different countries, and we let them set the treats on the table, so to speak, which is also quite fun. And it also tells us how diverse we are as a company. With being Lagom within H&M and the way that we recruit people, I can give you an example. I recruit people for a business controlling function, which is more of a business consultant. Generally, people who want to become bankers are disqualified. Generally, people who walk in a full suit with a tie are generally disqualified. Generally. Not stating that you can't have a suit and a tie when you work at H&M, because we offer the many people, and of course we do have people working in a suit and a tie every now and then. But it's so much about who you are as a person, and we want you to show the true you. And if we see someone who's entering in a uniform that is not really them, trying to be someone that they're not, that's generally not a good match with our values. So all of the recruitment that we do is based out of our values. All of the dialogues that we do is based on our values. You get scored on your values. You get scored on, are you a team member? You do not get scored on your results in H&M. You're never better than your team in H&M. None of our incentive is based on individual performance. All of our incentive bonuses are based on team effort. So in that sense, you can say Lagom is very much integrated, but it also comes back to the team needs to contribute in order to create success. And this is quite different, and I also know that this is something that's been very interesting to integrate with the American culture, because it is quite based on being number one, being the best, being seen as an individual, and sometimes that is really hard when you enter H&M. H&M is not a manual-based company. We have very few manuals. You have a fairly loose role description. There is very little hierarchy in H&M. As a manager, you do not request others to do things that you wouldn't do yourself. And I think listening to people who are coming from other companies, that's usually the biggest wake-up call they get when they join H&M. One of my dear friends that I work with, who is from Japan, her number one thing joining H&M was she worked in one of our stores, and she didn't have to refer to her boss as Mr. or Sir. They were on first name basis. And in Japan, that is very, very rare. And that kind of gave her food for thought, that you could actually work in an organization where everyone is equal. And that's very much where H&M is based upon. This morning, I had a phone call with our CEO, Carl-Johan Persson, and that's not an extreme phone call to have within H&M. Do I have daily phone call with our global CEO? No, of course not. But it wouldn't be strange to have a conversation like that within H&M. And I think that kind of is something that we take for granted within, especially if you come from Sweden. You assume that, of course, my manager is just the same as I am. We have different tasks, and my manager will, of course, help me to perform to my best ability. And that's my job as a manager, to support my team to perform the best they can. And therefore, I need to utilize people's strength So it's not about everyone needs to be the same. The team needs the different strengths, but we need to optimize them in creating success for the group. I don't know if that answered the question, but and that's 2 points chat. It's something that we often take for granted in our organization, and I've realized when I talk to a lot of people that is not obvious, that an organization is based like that. I am seeing positive and negative with it. A lot of people, there's usually a cycle when you join H&M. The first stage is happily unaware. You're thinking, oh my god, they're fikas, I'm meeting all these people, this is great. And then all of a sudden you get the responsibility. My previous manager got a phone call, said, here's the briefcase, go to Asia, open Asia. Okay. I've never been to Asia before. It's okay, we believe in you. One of our values is we believe in people. So literally, Patrick was sent on a flight to Hong Kong to open Asia. This is 10 years ago. That's very much H&M. There's almost a naive kind of, you can do anything. One of my colleagues in the buying office, who was a print designer, drawing, she said, actually, I'm more interested in architecture. I just draw these animals, not for fun, but as a task right now. And I asked, okay, let's reach out to our architectural team and see what's needed for you to join. And their reply was, can you start on Monday? I worked within production, I worked within buying, I worked within sales, and I'm now in charge of logistics in North Americas. That is US, Canada, Mexico, and Colombia. Very different countries, very different corporate laws, very different taxations. I've been in role now for 6 weeks. So I'm trying to take it on. But that is H&M. We believe in people. And luckily we have a lot of really good experts, and we have amazing people who support, and we take a lot of consultants who support. But we always believe that we need people from our own team to be a part of every part of the process. We do not give logistics and give it to Accenture and say, solve our logistics, because within H&M, our values needs to be everywhere. We do not set a different benefit system for our workers in the warehouse compared to people who works in the support office. Everyone has the same benefit system. Everyone is granted the same parental leaves, the same care. Everyone has the same. So obviously it's hard in a country as the US, where the unions in New York wants to set one wage, and then you need to apply that as H&M. We would never set a unique pay in New York compared to people who works here in Missouri. It needs to be an equal and transparent company. So that's a part of the complications, but that's where you also grow very, very quick. I've had a fantastic, fun journey, but you stay very humble for the tasks that are in front of you. But with a Lagom approach and realizing it's not me that is supposed to solve this on my own. I will never perform better than my team will. I will never be better than the full performance of the group. Helps you forward. And I think that makes it possible within this company that we can fall back on our values. I know whatever decision I make, if I do it based on our values, I've done the right decision. Is it cost conscious? Is it keep it simple? Is it straightforward and open-minded? All of these things goes through my mind when I make a decision. And when I feel like I've checked those boxes, then I can move forward. And I think that's something that really helps the company organization, for sure. Any questions about the H&M and values and how does that work?
You mentioned recruiting. When you have a job candidate there, do you generally look at their skills and what they can do, or their personality and what they bring to the table?
Number one, the way we rank it is personality. So I can give you an example. I had a really strong candidate in front of me, and the number one way how we separate candidates is every single person who joins H&M, doesn't matter if you're the new CFO globally, works a month in store with every single position there is. Sales advisor, department managers, visuals, store managers. You do a month in store before you take on the next challenge. This is to secure that everyone has the right values that joins the company, because if you do not do the work as a sales advisor and you're not willing to do the work as a sales advisor, you should not be the CFO of this company. I don't know if that answers your questions, but it really gives us a good gauge. Anyone else who had a question? No? Brilliant. Well, be happy, be lagom, have fika, and have a great day, everyone.